Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more Epic History TV, this time, Belisarius, the Battle of Rome. Now before we dive into the video, make sure you go and check out the links below in the description box or in my pinned comment in the comment section. I would love it if you join the Discord and share some fucking history memes. Now, Belisarius, Battle of Rome. Let's continue on with learning about the greatness of Belisarius. Justinian's greatest general.
534 AD. Flavius Belisarius, Eastern Roman general, has waged one of the most successful campaigns in the empire's history. The complete reconquest of North Africa in just 6 months, almost without loss.
Only 6 months?
He is well rewarded by
that.
Emperor Justinian. He celebrates his victory with a triumph in Constantinople and receives the title of consul. Belisarius has helped Justinian's regime survive political crisis. Now his victory offers irrefutable proof of God's divine sanction. Emboldened, Justinian will pursue a new strategic vision, the reconquest of the Western Roman Empire and its reunification. Belisarius's next mission will be to Italy, where he will fight a desperate struggle for the eternal city, Rome itself.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, they're making this really fucking epic. They are so talented at Epic History
First,
TV.
a big thanks to our video sponsor, Private Internet Access. These days, 60 years have passed since the Western Roman Empire fell to barbarians.
Oh dang, so only like a generation.
Many kings emerged to rule over its shattered remains. Above them all towered Theodoric the Great.
What made him so great?
With Eastern Roman approval, he'd led his Ostrogoth warbands from the Balkans into Italy. He overthrew and killed Odoacer, the man who'd deposed the last Western emperor, and forged his own Goth superstate.
Oh damn.
Theodoric, an Arian Christian, worked with the Senate in Rome and sought close relations with the Eastern Roman Empire. To Emperor Anastasius he wrote, "Our royalty is an imitation of yours, modelled on your good purpose, a copy of the only empire." Procopius, the 6th century historian and aide to Belisarius, would himself praise Theodoric as, in name a tyrant, but in fact an emperor, no less than any who've ever distinguished themselves in that office. In the eyes of his supporters, Theodoric had revived the Western Roman Empire, in all but name. But the succession would unravel his great achievement.
As usually
Theodoric
does.
had 3 daughters, so his heir was to have been his son-in-law, Eutharic, but he died 4 years before the king in 522. The succession passed to Theodoric's 10-year-old grandson, Athalaric. His mother, the highly educated and formidable Amalasuntha, ruled as regent. In defending her position, Amalasuntha made powerful enemies among the Goths, and when her son died aged just 18, one of those enemies, her cousin Theodahad, became king. In 535, he has Amalasuntha imprisoned on an island in the middle of Lake Bolsena. Weeks later, assassins arrive. They're rumored to be vengeful relatives of men Amalasuntha had killed during her regency. The daughter of Theodoric the Great is strangled in her bath.
Oh.
Theodahad thinks he can quietly eliminate his rival without repercussions. But Amalasuntha had been a trusted ally of the Emperor Justinian, and he is looking for an excuse for war. And the Emperor, upon learning what had befallen Amalasuntha, immediately entered upon the war, being in the 9th year of his reign. For Justinian, chaos at the Ostrogoth court presents an opportunity.
Perfect.
After success in North Africa, he wants Italy for the empire. The strategic and symbolic gains will be immense. Before her death, Amalasuntha had offered him the kingdom in exchange for political asylum.
Oh.
Now Justinian pressures Theodahad, a notoriously corrupt and greedy man, to accept the same deal or face war.
Whoa.
Justinian's tough diplomacy is backed up by military deployments. Mundus, commanding the army in Illyria, advances into Goth-controlled Dalmatia and takes Salona, the modern city of Split. Belisarius, meanwhile, is ordered to sail with 9,000 men to Sicily to see if the Goths there will put up a fight. Only the garrison of Palermo offers resistance, which is soon overcome. The rest of Sicily submits to the Romans without a fight.
Nice.
On the last day of 535, Belisarius marks the end of his consulship, scattering coins to the crowds in Syracuse as his troops march triumphantly through the city. As negotiations continue in the Goth capital Ravenna between Theodahad and Justinian's envoy, Solomon, Praetorian prefect of North Africa, arrives in Sicily with alarming news from Carthage.
Oh no.
The army, angered by late pay and religious discrimination, has murdered its officers and mutinied. Belisarius immediately sails for Carthage with just 100 picked men. His own formidable reputation, plus generous handouts of cash, quickly secures the loyalty of 2,000 troops, whom he leads out to face the 9,000 mutineers. The mutineer army is a
This fucking mad lad going out to face them with 2,100 men? God damn.
motley crew of Romans, mercenaries, renegade vandals, and escaped slaves, commanded by Stotzas, a former Belisarius. They have no generals and little discipline.
Oh,
When Stotzas tries to maneuver his army into a better position, it becomes badly disordered. Belisarius immediately launches an all-out attack. Stotzas and his army turn and run.
They don't even put up a fight? Oof.
Belisarius has saved Carthage, but the war in North Africa against Berbers and rebels will drag on for 15 more years. This task falls to Solomon, as Belisarius must race back to Sicily to quash another mutiny among his own troops. In the Balkans, meanwhile, a Goth counterattack results in the death of General Mundus, and the Romans make a tactical withdrawal. When news of this minor triumph reaches King Theodahad, he feels suddenly emboldened and rejects all Justinian's demands.
Oh god.
Belisarius receives new orders. He is to cross the Strait of Messina and reconquer Italy from the Ostrogoths. Belisarius lands in Italy with barely 8,000 men. The bulk of his troops are infantry, including 3,000 Isaurians, fierce warriors from the Taurus Mountains of Anatolia. His cavalry includes Hun and Berber mercenaries, as well as the elite Bucellari, the picked troops maintained by Belisarius and other senior commanders.
Cavalry, though.
As in North Africa, he is accompanied on campaign by his wife Antonina, a capable and trusted ally of Empress Theodora. That the Emperor entrusts the campaign to such a small force, when the Goths can field an army 4 times its size, indicates Justinian's supreme confidence in Belisarius.
100%.
But it is also a sign that he has badly underestimated the Goths and their will to fight.
Yes, that too.
Belisarius's army is welcomed by southern Italians and meets no opposition as far as Naples. This city has strong walls and a garrison of 800 Goths. Belisarius appeals directly to its citizens, urging them to throw open the gates and warning of the dire consequences of an assault. I pray that an ancient city which has long been inhabited by Christians and Romans may not meet with such a fortune, especially at my hands as a commander of Roman troops. The citizens of Naples are divided, but ultimately their leaders reject the demand to hand over the city. When Belisarius's troops sneak into the city using an old aqueduct, there is a savage slaughter of Goths and Italian citizens alike, until the general can restore order.
I kind of want to know more how they used an old aqueduct to get in. Sounds pretty impressive. I want to hear more about that story.
The main Ostrogoth army has been standing idle 60 miles to the north. Theodahad, never suited to military command, and now unsettled by omens, does nothing to save Naples. It's his own death sentence. He is deposed and killed. Witigis becomes the new king of the Ostrogoths. He is in his 60s, but he's an experienced soldier who fought alongside Theodoric the Great. He assumes that Belisarius must be leading a large army up from the south, and wants more time to gather his forces. He also plans to negotiate a truce with the Franks, which will free up more troops for the war against the Romans.
Okay.
So, leaving 4,000 men to hold Rome, Witigis withdraws to Ravenna.
That's it?
Belisarius garrisons Naples and advances up the old...
I mean, then again, you don't need that many men to defend a city. But still, you know, against Belisarius, I feel like leaving a bit more men would have been better.
Roman road, the Via Latina, to Rome.
Heard about Belisarius'
But as he nears the great city, the Goths simply abandon it.
Oh.
They march out through the Porta Flaminia, as Belisarius and his army march in through the Porta Asinaria, a gate which, though much restored, survives to this day.
Nice.
60 years after the fall of the Western Empire, Rome once more belongs to the Romans. Belisarius duly dispatches the keys to the city to Emperor Justinian. Rome in the 6th century is still a great city, but a shadow of its former glory.
Yes.
In its imperial heyday, Rome's population had been around 500,000. Now it's just a fifth of that. But it remains the seat of the Roman Senate and the Pope, and a city of intense emotional and cultural significance to all Romans. The city is also notoriously difficult to defend, which is why the Goths have abandoned it. The famous Aurelian walls are crumbling, and at 12 miles in length are too long for a small army to easily hold. The Goths had also worried that Rome's large population might turn against them.
Yeah, it's a big city.
Belisarius is down to 7,000 men, not enough to face the Goths in open battle. So he sends detachments to garrison key strongholds along the Via Flaminia, the road to Ravenna, which he hopes will delay the inevitable Goth advance. While in Rome, he and his men begin hurried preparations for a siege.
Ooh.
The walls are repaired, and merlons are added. A deep moat is dug around the city. The granaries are filled with grain. All Rome's adult male citizens are conscripted into the city guard. Witigis, meanwhile, has been told how small Belisarius' army is. Embarrassed by his earlier caution, he gives the order for his reinforced army to march on Rome. His chief concern is to get there before Belisarius can escape, but Belisarius has no plans to flee. And whoever of you has hopes of setting foot in Rome without a fight is mistaken in his judgment. For as long as Belisarius lives, it is impossible for him to relinquish this city. Such were the words of Belisarius. 537 AD. In early spring, Witigis leads a huge Goth army, probably more than 30,000 men, down the Via Flaminia, sweeping past the small Roman outposts. Belisarius plans to fight a delaying action a mile and a half north of the city at the Milvian Bridge. But his infantry, terrified by the size of the Goth army, abandon the bridge without a fight.
God damn it.
Belisarius is left facing the Goth army with just 1,000 horsemen. He orders his men to charge. Belisarius himself fights in the front rank. Scores of men fall around him. Goth spears finally drive Belisarius and his men back towards the Porta Salaria. At first, its defenders don't recognize Belisarius, covered in dust and gore, and won't let him in. He's forced to launch another desperate charge to drive the Goths back from the walls. Finally, the gate is opened, and he and his men get back into the city. The siege of Rome begins.
He's a lucky motherfucker.
The city is too large for Witigis to completely surround. He builds 7 fortified camps north of the city and cuts the aqueducts that have supplied Rome with water for 800 years. There will be no baths for the Romans, but the city's wells will still supply drinking water. When Belisarius rejects calls to surrender, the Goths begin building rams, ladders, and siege towers for a major assault. 18 days later, they attack. But their inexperience in siege warfare is soon evident. Their towers are pulled by oxen. The Romans shoot all the animals, and the towers are left stranded.
That's awkward.
The Goths assault the city from multiple directions. The mausoleum of Hadrian, converted into a fortress, comes under heavy pressure. But eventually, the Goths are thrown back on all fronts. That night, the Romans celebrate a great victory, lighting fires and singing from the battlements. Both sides prepare for a long siege. Belisarius is an inspiring presence in the city, active, calm and confident, even when others begin to despair. He has written to Justinian urgently requesting reinforcements. Now he oversees every aspect of the city's defense and supply. He orders all non-combatants to travel south to Naples, so there are fewer mouths to feed. He has the keys to the gates changed regularly to reduce the risk from treachery, while his Berber mercenaries patrol at night with dogs to detect any surprise attack. His wife, Antonina, also takes an active role. When the Pope is suspected of conducting secret talks with the Goths, she demands, "Tell us, Lord Pope Silverius, what have we done to you and the Romans to make you want to betray us to the Goths?" The Pope is arrested and sent out of the city. A month into the siege, Belisarius receives much-needed reinforcements. 1,600 cavalry, mostly Huns and Slavs, led by Martinus and Valerian. Belisarius has seen that the Goths have no mounted archers. Now he can use his own to make hit-and-run attacks against the enemy. A few hundred horsemen will ride within range of the Goths, shower them with arrows, then fall back under covering fire from the city walls. Procopius counts 67 actions of this type, both large and small. Almost all are won by the Romans because of their superior cavalry. The victories raise morale and frustrate the enemy, but they will not break the siege. The situation deteriorates dramatically when the Goths take Portus, Rome's port at the mouth of the river Tiber, making it much more difficult to get supplies into the city. By September, 6 months into the siege, hunger and sickness begin to take hold.
Well,
even the army's mules are killed to make sausages. The citizens of Rome beg Belisarius to stake everything on one decisive battle for the city. But he refuses, telling them, "You act as though you were playing dice and want to risk everything on a single roll. But it is not my custom to choose the short course over the best course. Instead, Belisarius sends Antonina and Procopius to Naples, with instructions to use his authority to requisition all grain and every soldier who can be spared, and send both to Rome. 500 men and a convoy of supplies are soon rolling up the Via Appia. They're followed by 1,800 cavalry reinforcements, who land at Dryas, modern Otranto.
Nice.
Then 3,000 Isaurians arrive at Naples aboard grain ships.
More nice.
And travel on to Ostia by sea. After months of delay, the vast resources of the Eastern Roman Empire are finally coming to Belisarius' aid. The garrison of Rome launch a series of diversionary attacks on the Goths. These allow the supplies, under Antonina's direction, to slip into the city. The threat of starvation is ended. It's the last straw for Witigis. His own men have been camped outside Rome for almost a year, harassed by the enemy, themselves decimated by disease and hunger. The Ostrogoth king asks for a truce, to open negotiations with the emperor. He offers Justinian all of southern Italy, but it is not enough. The initiative has swung to Belisarius. Belisarius has sent an elite force of 2,000 cavalry, commanded by John, north into Picenum, behind enemy lines. When the Goths break the terms of the truce, Belisarius orders John to unleash hell. Almost all the Goth warriors are away on military service. Their farms and settlements are completely exposed. John sacks, burns and plunders at will, enslaving hundreds of Goth women and children. Romans are not armed. Witigis' uncle gathers a small force to challenge John. They're no match for his Bucellari. John ignores the Goth strongholds at Urbino and Auximum, but at the invitation of its citizens, occupies the walled city of Ariminum, just 30 miles south of the Ostrogoth capital at Ravenna. Witigis has no choice but to abandon the siege, and march north to defend the Goth heartland. Against the odds, under-resourced and outnumbered, Belisarius has triumphed in one of history's most epic sieges. A siege that has lasted 1 year and 9 days. Because of him, the city of Romulus and the Caesars once more belongs to the Roman Empire. The war against the Goths in Italy seems to be entering its final phase. Belisarius' position appears unassailable. But, as every emperor knows, the history of the empire has been blighted time and again by the treachery of overmighty generals.
Oh no.
Belisarius' victories are as glorious as any in Rome's history. How can Justinian not regard him with suspicion?
No.
Soon Belisarius will find himself facing new rivals from within the empire, just as an old enemy re-emerges in the east.
Oh no.
Big thanks to...
I love how they're like, how they're scripting this series. It's so enjoyable. It's so entertaining. I love it. That was Belisarius, The Battle of Rome by Epic History TV. I hope you guys enjoyed. I certainly did. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.